harmony, more reminiscent of a choir to just get that huge sound.
Nice.
I think the song is about aliens. So the lead singer David Abraham is really into like sci-fi stuff, and so like a lot of his lyrics point towards that kind of thing. And it was fun to sort of discover the meaning of the lyrics as I kind of worked through the project. We recorded the drums in a really, really nice studio called Grey Spark Studios in Pune, which is sort of like a sister city of Bombay. Maybe sister city is not the right word, but it's the next big major city that's like driving distance from Bombay.
It's like the metro area of Bombay.
Yeah. It's outside the metro area of Bombay. It has its own metro area, but it's a large city that's in the same province or state as Bombay. And the bridge, we doubled up the toms. So the drummer was playing the toms when he was tracking his drums, but then we like hauled out some extra drums, a second kick drum, and we sort of layered up the sort of percussion in the sort of bridge section. Like I said about the choir, once the vocals were arranged, we just got as many people together that could sing, and sort of I taught them the sort of different harmonies, and we tracked that in a much smaller space in my friend Jason's studio. What else? All the guitars and stuff were tracked in his studio as well. And I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that song. It's really cool. It's one of my favorites on the record.
Nice.
It was a challenge to mix. There's lots of layers and stuff in there.
Well, dude, all your mixes sound really good. Maybe if you could just like quickly like just tell us a little bit about your approach to mixing that maybe I didn't ask you about or you didn't talk about yet.
Yeah, I felt like I did just talked way too much about my life and not enough about my mixing.
I'll just cut out the first half. No, I was just kidding.
Yeah, it's fine. Do edit it however you will. Probably electronic music and live band stuff is pretty different. And then like say with the project that I'm working on now with Mally, I'm for the first time having to combine those worlds. A lot of the rock bands that I've produced, I've sort of been a little bit purist about it and have shied away from using any VSTs or too many VSTs when I don't need to. I try to always just track the real instruments, mic up an amp.
I'm assuming that applies for drums also, like in terms of like sample replacement and stuff.
Yeah. So this album that I'm working on with Mally is the first one ever where I'm actually doing a little bit of sample replacement, but it's still very subtle for the most part. It's either subtle or it's overt, where I'm actually like replacing the snare with like a 909 snare to intentionally, So in terms of low end, when I'm mixing electronic music, I like to take my bass and kick and bust them to their own sort of auxiliary channel. And I love using the Pultec EQs for the low end. And I'm always like sort of learning a bit more about the Pultecs and how they kind of work. Obviously, I'm using the emulations of them, not the real hardware. So I like to use the Pultec on the low end, the bass and kick. And then on the auxiliary channel, I like to have a multiband compressor so that I can sort of dial in the subs and compress the sub frequencies separate from the, the punchy, say 90 to, maybe 200. And like I was saying earlier about having these like crappy monitors that sort of distort when the bass is out of control. So it's a nice way to like hone in on those sub frequencies and make sure that they're not overpowering. I'll point the listener to sort of any sort of major label or big time hip hop mix, whether it's like Kendrick or Drake. If you listen to the subs, they're actually they're a lot lower than you expect. And just sort of thinking back to when I was not a kid, but younger and making beats, I just would indiscriminately turn up the bass as loud as I could. You just assume that more low end equals good. But especially with sub frequencies, just getting them under control, it's always a learning process. And there's a reason why mix engineers and producers constantly, talk about low end and are constantly sort of trying to figure out low end theory, right?
I feel like mastering also helps with that, like
It does.
Like,
it does.
If you miss the mark a little bit, the mastering engineer can hear what's happening down there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I really rely on Christian a lot, who you've had on your show. He's such an awesome guy, best mastering engineer a guy could ask for. And I like having the one mastering engineer that I go to. And so unless I'm working with an artist that sort of has a mastering engineer already in mind, which they usually don't, because like honestly, who does? I just always recommend I always recommend Christian. And I'm a big proponent. Like if you're a producer, you should know how to mix and you should know something about mastering. And every now and then I dabble with my mastering a few low stakes projects, just to keep it up and learn. But the idea of having a dedicated mastering guy that you can go to, that you trust, that you have a good relationship with, is really, it's been beneficial to me. Like, so yeah, Christian is great for that. And hopefully he catches, what I miss. But it also is a good idea to, if you can help Christian out by not making the subs totally like ludicrous.
The closer you get it to the source, the better, right? Yeah, so either in the recording itself or in the mix stage or whatever it is before you get to the end.
And that's another thing that I like, that concept of just everything at source. Like a philosophy that I have, and that I guess a lot of people aspire to, and I also am constantly trying to aspire to and improve, is that you want to do the thing as best as you can at each stage of the process. And I follow that right down to the composition level and arrangement. So like nowadays I do a lot of my composing on Ableton, and I refuse to do any mixing on Ableton. Like if you look at my Ableton sessions, like all the faders are at Unity. And like the reasoning behind that is sort of like, if you're in a band, you don't have a mix engineer for your band. If you're just rehearsing in your garage, you try to sound good between, the 3 or 4 of you or however many it is. There's no mixing involved. And so the composition sounds good even without mixing. And so I try and take that same approach to even when I'm composing electronic music, where I like, especially if you get into adding like lots and lots of layers into your composition. Like I think a lot of people have, and I encounter this when I'm working with other artists too, where they'll come up with an idea, it doesn't quite fit, and then you'll sort of like mix it to fit. And it's like, well, why do you have to do this work to get this thing to fit into your arrangement? Like, should it be there, or is there like a better way of accomplishing this? Or can one of the other instruments that are in the arrangement already like handle this idea that you just have? So
the layering is like a cop out almost.
Yeah. And this is another reason why I've really benefited from learning about synthesis, because like previously, where I might have taken like 4 different preset sounds to create one fat sound, now it's like, can I just like make a sound on one synth that accomplishes everything that I was getting out of all those, layering all these 4 presets together.
Right.
And same philosophy even with live instruments. Like, before you put that guitar overdub in, like, is there a way that the guitar that's already there can already play this? Or like sometimes I get a mix from something I haven't produced. It's just a mixing project, and I'll see the guitar sessions that like they send me. It's like 4 different guitars, but like the guitars aren't even playing at the same time. It's like, this can all just be the same track. Like, this whole idea of just reducing everything, even at the stage of arrangement. And so you don't have this weird disjointed like little piece here, and then I did another little piece here. Like if you think through the arrangement really well, like the arrangement should just sound amazing, before you even mix it, right? So like the arrangement sounds just, and you're not trying to like mix something to get it to fit, unless like there are always exceptions, but so it's that capturing the thing at source, like to the extreme. So like the arrangement has to be spot on. Then like when you're tracking, if you have an idea about how you want to mix it, then you can bring that into your tracking. And so you track it in such a way that, okay, I've tracked it, like whether it's miking up an amp or drums, so that before I even mix anything, it sounds good. right?
Yeah.
So the arrangement is spot on. Then I've tracked it and it sounds spot on. So then if you can accomplish that, then when you get to the mixing stage, the mixing becomes more of about aesthetics rather than just working really hard because I can't hear the bass or something, you know? Like there's going to be a bit of that. Everything
should fit into place. It's just about getting the right ambience or
exactly,
whatever it is, compression level.
And it's never going to be perfect. Like you're always going to, things are always going to slip through the cracks, which is sort of all the more reason why you should do it that way. Because if I'm trying really hard to get everything to sound good at as best as it can at each stage, and things are still falling through the cracks, then imagine how much actually just falls out of it and falls through the cracks.
I love it. That's a great analogy. It's like by the time you get to the mastering engineer, he's just like slapping duct tape to keep things together.
Exactly. So like at every stage, like composition, like even you can go even deeper, right? Songwriting, like songwriting, then the arrangement needs to sound good, just existing in the world, you know? Then when you track it, it just needs to sound great before you even mix it. And then when you mix it, it needs to sound awesome before you even send it to the mastering engineer. And then hopefully by the time it gets to a guy like Christian, he's not really frustrated with you. And
Are you fast when you mix? Are you a fast mixer or you take your time?
It depends. It varies a lot because these ideals that I just mentioned, you're not always able to live up to those ideals. Like the project that I'm working on now with Mally, it's taken it's getting close to 2 years, like over a year and a half now we've been working on this. And it's the first project where I've really had to pull together my knowledge of electronic music production and then mix it with my knowledge of just making organic indie rock or that kind of thing. So you go a certain distance and then we've decided, okay, we want to make changes, but we've already tracked the drums live. This album has been, the album that I'm working on now, it's a great project and I've learned a lot doing it, but it's been a huge challenge to the philosophy that I just described. And that tension is always there. But when I'm say like the Sleepless in Ontario West, I can mix something like that really fast. If I get a mix from somebody else, I can mix it really fast. If it's my own productions, it depends. It depends on how new the thing is, Like if it's like a totally new kind of thing, then
there's like a learning curve.
Yeah, you might be scratched. Like this record that I'm working on with Mally was the first time I ever had to do time correction for live drums. Because normally, like I don't want to say I'm against it, but I try to avoid it. Like I don't line everything up to the grid when I'm working with a live drummer usually. But this project sort of called for it. Like it's a style of music that would benefit from using what do they call it, beat detective. And there was a huge learning curve with that because I've done enough time correction with electronic music, but anytime you have multiple mics, and obviously for a live drum kit you've got many mics, a lot of the things that I had known about time correction and time stretching just don't work if you have multiple mics. Like you can't use something like elastic audio if you have multiple mics, and that applies to even like a guitar amp. Like if you have more than one mic on a guitar amp, then you really can't stretch the audio.
Right, you got to slice and dice.
Yeah, you got to slice. And I didn't know that, like straight up didn't know that until I was confronted with this project, because I was never time correcting so much before, right. And I'm not time correcting because of the musicians. The musicians are awesome. It's just the nature of this project is such that, it calls for time correction. And so I went through all the drum sessions and did this like elastic audio thing and found that I was getting all this weird phasey stuff. And I was like, wow, what do I even do? And then my friend showed me how to use Beat Detective, and even Beat Detective fried my brain. I was like, I can't believe this is actually a thing that people do in professional settings. But like when you dig into Beat Detective and you actually see where the cut points are in the waveforms, it's just shocking. Like, and it's a rabbit hole because then you start to understand why people do the sample replacement. Like when your kick waveform has like a crossfade like right in the middle of it because of the snare that's happening like in the 16th note right after. Like, it's like, I can see why you want to replace your kick samples with your kick drum with samples and stuff.
It's a good call. So interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, dude.